Charmaine, and my guest today burst on the scene in 1986 with her hit single, Do Me Baby. And she followed it up with one of my favorites, Do You Still Love Me? And she's here today to talk about her TVOne episode, The Story of Meli'sa Morgan. Help me welcome Miss Meli'sa Morgan. Welcome.
Hi, Lady Charmaine.
Well, welcome to the show. Now, I was always wondering, and I'm so glad they're doing an unsung story on you, because I was always wondering what happened to you. Because, see, back in the day when I was in college, I used to play your songs when I was a college radio DJ. So I am so glad you're here today. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Well, nothing happened to me. I've been here all along.
I hadn't been hearing you on the radio like we
along.
used to. You know how when you're always on the radio, because you had one of my favorite songs, Do You Still Love Me? Do Me Baby was very popular. And then we didn't hear you as much as we used to. And so I'm just so glad that you're here to tell us about your story. I know you had an album that came out in 2009, so we can definitely talk about that. But first, were you surprised to get the call from the producers that they wanted to do a unsung story on you? What was your reaction when you got the call?
Well, yeah, I was very surprised, and my reaction was, no, I don't want to do it.
Really?
It really was, because I don't consider myself unsung. I don't consider myself. I kind of always felt that unsung was like, you're talking about your career because it's, almost over. And I didn't want to be, compartmentalized like that, because I work a lot. I'm very, known in the business, and I travel, and, I do tours all over the world, and I didn't want that stigma on me. But I'm really glad that my sister was there. My sister Rita Vincent was there, and she's the one who told me, you have to tell your story, because, even though you work, a lot of people across the country, haven't seen you, and they just don't know. So, with her urging, we decided to do it.
See, it pays to listen to your sister. Because, see, like with me, I didn't know that you were still working. So that's why I was so happy. So as I was reading about you, I'm like, oh, she's been around all this time. I just didn't know. So I want to just talk about the beginning of your career. I read that you sang with a couple of groups, Shades of Love and also High Fashion. When did your singing career actually begin, and when did you decide to make singing a career?
Well, believe it or not, my singing career was chosen for me when I was about 9 years old. I started really in a gospel choir, and from there I went on to sing in local groups, and it was kind of understood, like from high school on, that I was going to be a singer. So before I got with Shades of Love, which I really wasn't with Shades of Love, I was just the lead singer, and then I went on my own to just sing that record and do shows on my own. And High Fashion, I was considered like the go-to background singer, for sessions and stuff like that in New York. So it was kind of chosen for me. It's a gift, and I'm just glad that I'm the vessel.
And speaking of go-to background person, you also sang with Chaka Khan, Whitney Houston, and Melba Moore. So you really were the go-to background person. But when did your solo career begin? Because when you sang Princess Do Me Baby, I mean, you just reinvented that entire song. Why did you decide to re-record that song?
Well, what happened is that I was actually out on tour with Kashif, and we was opening for Gladys Knight on Broadway, actually in New York. And Hush Productions came backstage because they were managing Kashif at the time, and they just turned to me and said, "Don't you think it's time for you to do your solo career?" And I was like, yeah. So the next day, I basically went up to their office and signed the deal, like the next day. But the stipulation was that they had a production deal with Capitol Records, and Capitol Records had a president called Don Grierson, and the stipulation was the next R&B female that they signed had to do that song, because he had that song on hold for 2 years. And so I didn't choose that song. Don Grierson chose that song, and I was really kind of, skittish about doing it, because, during that time, no one, women didn't sing about Do Me Baby. I mean, now they sing about that and so much more. So it's not quite as shocking, but I think Paul Lawrence with the production made it more luxurious and more sensual than, risque.
Mm-hmm. Now, wasn't Melba Moore's husband, wasn't he the president of Hush Productions at the time?
Yes, he was. Charles Huggins. He was. Yeah, they were very influential and catapulted my career. Then and up until my last album, my last CD. But I understand they're going through some things now, and I don't think he'll be doing that anymore.
Okay. Now you have one of my favorites, Do You Still Love Me? How did that song even come about?
Yeah.
I used to play that one over and especially when you think you're in love with somebody and you put the blue light on and you play that song. Yeah. So tell us about that song.
Yes. Well, I was very fortunate on my first album CD to work with, at that time, she was Shaka Khan's musical director, but she was well known as a writer too, Lisette Wilson. And me and Lisette Wilson collaborated on the whole album, my first album. And she would do music at night. No, I'm sorry, she would do music in the day, and I would go in at night and record the vocals. And that was one of the songs. I fell so in love with that song. Until this day, I still like that type of beat. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking very forward to singing that song all the time.
Now, you being a female in this, because you just talked about Do Me Baby, and at that particular time, you were so right. You didn't hear a lot of women singing songs like that. You were like really one of the first that I knew singing a song like that. But for you, what was one of the hardest parts of working in the music industry?
Well, the hardest part of working in the music industry to me is understanding the business, and understanding that, you can make records that sell millions and millions of copies, and yet you could still be broke. Mm-hmm. So it was really trying to understand the balance of that and how to, take what you make and make your finances and everything work for you. That was the hardest part for me. The easiest part is getting on stage and looking better and singing for your fans and for people to love your music. It's the easy part, the shopping and the hair and all that stuff. But making sure to get your money, when you finish your tour, you have money so that you can live and have a home and, have a car and things like that. That's the hardest part.
Because, you hear that so much when you hear so many different stories. A lot of people do talk about the financial part. And I think now you have a lot of younger people who are a little wiser because they learned from the older on how to manage their money and how to watch their dollars. What advice would you give a new person that's trying to come into the business just from the experiences that you experienced, like you said, making a lot of money but still be broke, or appear to make a lot of money and still be broke?
Well, I'm watching TLC and people like that have been in the business, for years and years, and like I said, sold millions of copies, and they're basically asking their fans to donate money to finish their, albums. So I would just say try to get a good lawyer, try to get a good, business person to negotiate your deal, and when you get your money, save. I really would, because you don't live on the road. You don't live on the road, and you don't live those costumes and everything like that. They're gorgeous for what they are, for your image and everything like that. But if you're spending tens and thousands of dollars on costumes every time you step on a stage, somebody has to pay for that. And in the long run, no matter how how fabulous you look, when the statement come in, you're going to be the one that's paying for that stuff. So just be careful.
What you're saying is so true. I remember some friends of mine when they were first coming out, and I never forget, we were together and they had just bought some jackets from the Gap. And I was like, oh, that's great. They buy you guys new clothes and everything. And I never forget, he said no. He said, whatever they purchase for us, our music videos, we have to pay all of that back. And he said, Charmaine, we probably will not see a paycheck, he said, until we go on tour. But, he said, until 2 years. He said, we get paid when we go on tour. They went on to become one of the biggest boy bands. They blew up after that. But he taught me a whole lot about the business. I thought everything was free, but you're right. They're going to get all that money back.
No, it seems like it's free.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it's free because you're really not spending anything. You're just receiving. So it seems like it's free. There was something that I heard a long time ago that a major artist, instead of getting all their money, in advance at one time, decided to break it down in monthly payments. And very well-known artist, I can't say who it is, but she said it literally saved her life. You know what I'm saying? Because you get all this money up front and you spend it, and then there's taxes and all that kind of stuff, and then before you know it, there's nothing left. But if you spread it out as a monthly payment, at least you can live off of it. So that was really good advice.
Now that's smart. Well, basically she felt like an employee just getting a check every month, a state employee. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good. So I know that your music career is still going on. A lot of people just didn't know about it. I know you still have a lot of fans out there. So tell us, what have you been doing, from your first album all the way up till now? I know you're still touring, like you said, around the country. So tell us, what have you been doing lately?
Well, lately, I've just been touring. I'm about to do a show with Howard Hewitt, February 13th in Florida. I'm doing a show with RL of Next and Case at the World Resorts Casino in New York on March 7th. I have so many good things. Glenn Jones, I'm doing a show with Glenn Jones on March 14th. And, I just came off last year a UK tour with Melville Moore. We travel all around Europe. I work like all the time. So, like I said, it's just that a lot of people don't see me, nationally. Mm-hmm. So, but I work all the time. I'm getting ready to Miami in a few months, Ohio, Lexington, Kentucky in May. So I work all the time, and I also do outside projects. I do Meli'sa's Fruit Sticks, which is like it's like fruit baskets, and I also have a boutique crochet line that I'm going to be launching this fall that has oversized blankets and scarves that I make. So I'm all over the place.
Okay. So we know we're going to get ready to watch the story of Meli'sa Morgan on UnSung. What is it that you want the audience to take away from watching your UnSung story?
I want them to see the inside, of the story of Meli'sa Morgan, because I'm one of those artists that, I really didn't have much dirt. I didn't do drugs. I didn't, party, and I didn't do things like that. But still, I went through my struggles, and I went through my ups and downs, and somehow I managed to be a survivor and still surviving in this industry. And a lot of people, when they see me, oh, you don't want for nothing. You haven't struggled for anything. But like you said, even for someone to say to me, where have you been? I haven't seen you. You know what I'm saying? That's a struggle within itself, even though I'm working. So I want people to see the inside story and to know that I'm still here and I'm standing, with all that I've gone through.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And I want to remind the audience to make sure you tune in to TVOne's UnSung, the story of Meli'sa Morgan on February the 4th. Again, thank you so much. And I definitely wish you all the best and God bless you.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it. I love
so
talking about things in the music business.
Thank you so much. And make sure you come again.
I will.